The story happened when I was 17 years old. I, like most girls, became very bad-tempered when I entered puberty, especially with my family. My mother and I would often argue over small things. My mother would often criticize my hair and dressing style. She thought I was dressing too rebelliously and not in line with her expectations and values. I, however, see it as an expression of my freedom and individuality and do not want to be restricted or bound. We often had conflicts and arguments over these issues. I would complain that she did not understand me and did not respect my choices and independence. She, in turn, would think that I did not respect her opinions and teachings and was not willing to accept her advice and help. This conflict caused our relationship to become more and more strained. I began to be less and less willing to communicate with her, and she began to feel frustrated and helpless, not knowing how to communicate with me. I felt confused and fed up with my family and scared about the future. The story takes place that summer. It was so hot that summer that it hadn't rained for almost 2 months. On the last day of August, a light rain began to fall in the sky and I couldn't resist walking outside. The rain dripped on the leaves, making a crisp, pleasant sound. As I was playing in the rain, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared and struck me and a nearby tree. In a flash, I felt a strong burst of electricity penetrate my body. I found myself lying on the ground, surrounded by smoke and the smell of burning. My body trembled violently, and the pain was so intense that I could not breathe. I tried to stand up, but my body had no strength left and I could only curl up on the ground. Suddenly, my soul left my body and floated in the air. I saw my body, covered with burns and bruises. I began to get scared, not knowing what had happened to me or what to do. At that moment, I heard my mother's screams. She came running out of the room. I wanted to say something to her, but I couldn't move my lips and could only watch her cry sadly. I felt very strange because I could no longer move my body, but my consciousness was still there. I began to feel fearful, not knowing what would happen to me next. Suddenly, a light appeared in the upper right of me. A figure appeared out of the light and he flapped his huge wings. He smiled at me and held out his hand, inviting me to leave the place with him. I felt that this man was very friendly and that he conveyed a strange feeling to me. His smile made me feel safe and comfortable, as if I had always known him. After we passed through the clouds, we came to a beautiful place. In this place, I felt a peace that I had never felt before, and I felt that my mind was healed. At the same time, I also had a wonderful feeling as if everything was interconnected and interdependent. When I turned around, I found that the angel had disappeared. Everything here was so beautiful. I saw a bright starry sky and mountains and lakes in the distance. I felt my soul was liberated, away from the bondage brought by my body. Suddenly, a huge screen appeared in front of my eyes. I saw my past and my selfish behavior without regard for the feelings of others. I did something that made my mother very angry in spite of her feelings. It was an evening when my mother had worked very hard to prepare a nice dinner for me. I didn't tell her in advance that I was going out with my friends. When I got home in the evening, I went to bed without saying hello to my mother. She was worried about me all night. She was very angry and scolded me. At that time, I didn't realize the harm my behavior had caused to my mother. I now realize my mistake at that time and feel very remorseful. In fact, there are many other things like this. Although no one here has criticized me, it has made me very ashamed. I also saw some good things that I had done. It was a winter morning. When I walked out of my house, I found an old man slipped and fell in the street, spilling the things in his shopping bag. I ran over and picked up the old man and helped him pick up the scattered things. I walked home with him and helped him put his things away. The old man was very grateful and expressed his thanks to me. This incident made me feel warm and satisfied because I was able to help others and make them feel happy. I realized that it doesn't take special opportunities or conditions to do good, it just takes a little more time to pay attention to the people and things around me. A bright light appeared before my eyes. Jesus stepped out of the light. I saw that he was wearing a robe of immense whiteness, as if it were woven from soft clouds. The hem of the robe trailed on the ground. Around his waist was a golden belt, which radiated a bright light. Jesus' face had a smile on it, and his eyes were filled with wisdom and warmth. I felt that I had received a special grace. As I drew near to him, I felt an indescribable power. He did not speak, but I could feel his love and care. In his presence, my heart became so peaceful that all my worries and concerns disappeared. I felt surrounded by love, just like a mother holding her baby. I gained a lot of knowledge there and without any words or visuals. It was a higher level of understanding and communication. All my questions were answered, and the answers made so much sense. I even understood the nature of time, which is just a limitation of our world. There, time does not exist. He also told me that everything is about love, and that love is the essence of who we are. The purpose of our coming into this world is to learn to love and receive love. He made me understand that everything in the universe is interconnected and that each person's actions affect others. He encouraged me to continue spreading love and light, which is my mission and goal. Jesus said to me, "It's time to go back." I prayed to Jesus to let me stay, and he didn't answer me right away. He showed me the following scene. I was lying in a hospital bed. There were many paramedics busy around me as they tried to revive me. I heard one of the paramedics tell my mother that if I still could not regain my heartbeat in 5 minutes, I would be declared officially dead. When my mother heard the doctor's words, she began to cry loudly. Her sobs made me feel very heartbroken. My father was beside me, also wiping his tears secretly. I wanted to call out to them and tell them that I was still here, but I couldn't feel my body. I felt so guilty watching my mother in pain that I wished I could comfort her and tell her that everything would be okay. But I couldn't get close to her or communicate with her. I felt like I was just a silent observer. But at this time I had to make a choice to stay or go back. I saw my mom crying so much that I could feel her sadness. Finally, I told Jesus my choice. He smiled and nodded his head, seemingly satisfied with my answer. Then he said to me, "Follow me, we don't have much time." I felt a panic in my heart as I knew I was about to leave this wonderful world. We went through a shining door and arrived at the hospital. We returned to the ward and I saw my body lying on the bed. My mother and father were in the hallway, and my mother was full of sorrow. Jesus' hand gently tapped me on the shoulder and gestured for me to come into the room. Jesus told me that I needed to get back into my body. He said that my family and friends needed me. Even though I wanted to remain with Jesus, I understood that I had to go back and get on with my life. I expressed my gratitude to Jesus. He smiled and nodded to me, then told me that he would always be there for me, protecting and leading me. Finally, I went back into my body. I saw my hands and feet, and felt my breath and heartbeat. I was finally back in the world. When I was discharged from the hospital, I was doing better, but deep down I still felt heavy. I would often run to church, trying to find answers. I met a nun and I decided to confide in her about my experience. She listened very carefully. She encouraged me to stand firm in my faith and believe that my experience was real. She told me how fortunate I was to be able to experience such things. These words brought me great comfort and support. I was 17 years old at the time and had absolutely no understanding of the term near-death experience. I am now 49 years old. And I still remember all the details of the experience when I look back on it. At that time, the term near-death experience was not yet popular in society and few people talked about such experiences. I tried to tell my family about it, but they were skeptical of such paranormal phenomena and more than anything thought I was lying. Therefore, I buried it deep in my heart. Although this experience gave me great insight, I also felt the pain of loneliness and misunderstanding as a result. As time went on, more and more people began to pay attention to and study near-death experiences. I read many articles on the subject, listened to other people's stories, and gradually understood that my experience was not an isolated case. I began to accept and understand the experience more and gradually began to incorporate it into my life. Although I still feel confused, I know that I am not alone. Now I go to the nursing home every week when I can. I chat with the elderly people there. Once, an old man suddenly asked me, "Do you think people really go to heaven after they die?" I understood his inner confusion and uneasiness, because their bodies had brought them closer to death. The thinking about death was also more profound and real. So I shared what I had experienced. I told him that I had been through a near-death experience and saw the beauty of heaven. As I told him, he began to gradually relax, and there was a little more light in his eyes. I saw a small smile on his face, as if he had found the answer. I described to him the picture I saw in the simplest and most understandable language possible. He listened very carefully and thanked me afterwards. I realized that these old people's worries about death and the future could find some comfort and inspiration through my experience. This also made me feel very satisfied and rewarded. From then on, whenever I visited the nursing home, I would talk to them and share my experience. I was convinced that my story could bring some hope and help to them. One day, a friend gave me a Bible. It took me by surprise, because I had never read it carefully and I thought it looked hard to understand. But that night I opened it, turned a page at random, and found that it talked about the wisdom of God. As I began to read, the words seemed to be absorbed by me. I read for hours and felt spiritually fulfilled. Since then, I have read the Bible every day and shared my experiences with other believers. I felt closer to God. I stopped wasting time and focused more on my faith and a healthy lifestyle. I realize that God is always around us. I now feel like I am growing and I am getting closer to Him every day, which makes me feel blessed. My faith has given me inner peace and tranquility and has made me appreciate every moment of my life more.
Have you been hit in the head? Saw a bright blue light. That's the best way to describe my crossing. If you ever see that light between your eyes, that's the way to heaven. It happened when I was 32 years old. It was a weekend afternoon and I was riding my motorcycle to a friend's house. I was riding my motorcycle and enjoying the roadside scenery. Little did I know that danger was approaching me. A car that ran a red light suddenly came out from the side of the road and collided violently with me. I was knocked out of the way. I lost my balance and kept rolling on the ground, hitting the ground and objects around me. I felt a strong pain and my consciousness began to blur. I struggled to get up, but my body was out of control. A beautiful aura flashed in front of my eyes. A strong heat wrapped around me, and the blue light was all around me. I didn't know what was happening or what to expect. My soul was floating in the air and I felt like I had entered a whole new realm. At this time, I was confused about my existence and everything around me. Suddenly, I heard a voice that kept calling my name. The voice was very soft, as if it came from a faraway place. The voice told me to stop struggling because I was badly hurt. It would take me to another safe place. My pain also gradually disappeared. I followed the light, moving upward quickly until I couldn't see anything below me. I felt very light, as if I were flying. Everything around me became brighter. I began to feel a sense of existence that transcended time and space, as if I were one with the entire universe. I looked up ahead and saw a step, which was paved with golden stones. Filled with curiosity and excitement, I took the first step without hesitation, and when I walked up the first step, I felt very comfortable. The second step quickly appeared under my feet. When I took another step, a new step appeared again. It was a wonderful feeling. I didn't feel tired, and I kept walking up the steps. Eventually, I came to a beautiful place with a spectacular view all around. There was a vast grassland in front of me, and in the distance was a rolling mountain range. Here, I felt calm and free from any worries. I walked forward a little way and I saw a clear stream. Wildflowers were growing around it, and butterflies were fluttering among the flowers. I continued along the creek. I found some small animals. They were very friendly and not a bit aggressive. A bridge appeared in front of me. On the left side of the bridge was a huge building built of white stone. It emitted a dazzling light. It looked very bright there, emitting a warm glow as if it could chase away all the darkness. I gazed at the building and felt an aura of grandeur and sacredness. I took a deep breath and began to step onto that bridge. I walked in the direction of that building. As I approached it, I noticed a few details. It had ornate decorations and each stone had been carefully carved. As I walked through the doors, I felt like I had entered a different world. There was beautiful music and an atmosphere that made me feel calm. I saw many people living there. Some were laughing, some were chatting. They all had happy smiles on their faces. I walked through the crowd and saw familiar faces. My father, grandmother, and uncle. They all looked very energetic. The first person who spoke to me was my father. He asked me, "Son, what are you doing up there?" I replied, "I don't know, I just remember that there was a traffic accident and I came here." He reassured me, "Don't worry, you're safe here. You have come to heaven." I was very surprised and could not believe that I had come to heaven. So I said to my father, "You are really lucky to live here." My father smiled and said to me, "When you finish your work, you can live here too." He also told me that in heaven, everyone is free to choose the way they want to live. I saw a bright light in the distance, shining with an alluring glow. I wanted to get closer to see it more clearly. But my grandmother blocked me. In a gentle tone, she told me, "Son, it's not time for you to go there yet." I was a little upset and I tried to get closer again, but this time my father stopped me. He said to me, "Son, you have to go back. Your time is not up yet." At this point, other family members came up to me and reassured me in gentle tones. They told me that although heaven was very beautiful, I still had many unfinished tasks that I needed to go back and complete. They said that when I finished my mission, I could come back here and enjoy eternal happiness. When I heard that I had to go back, I was very lost because I didn't want to leave this beautiful place. I told them that I didn't want to go back, I wanted to stay with you, and I didn't know how to go back. Suddenly, the bright light in the distance appeared above my head. It was like a giant flashlight illuminating my surroundings. I looked up and saw a man in a white robe appear in front of me. When I took a closer look, I realized it was Jesus. Jesus' face was filled with compassion and warmth. He patted my head gently with his hand and said, "My child, you have many important tasks to accomplish and you need to go back and get on with your life." I was so confused, I didn't know what task he was talking about. As if Jesus knew my doubts, he continued, "Your task is to pass on love and kindness, to help people in need, and to become a good person." I looked at Jesus and asked him, "Do I have a choice?" Jesus gently replied, "Of course." He also told me, I was very badly hurt and no one would blame me if I wanted to stay here. I pondered for a moment and then asked, "What will happen to my mother down there?" Jesus said, "Your mother will feel sad, and this state of sadness may stay with her for 5 years or for the rest of her life." I continued to ask, "And my wife, can you bring her up now?" Jesus smiled and said, "Your wife has a mission and a task to accomplish, and she needs to continue her life on earth." Then he gently placed his hand on my shoulder and gestured for me to look down. I looked down to the ground where my mother and the rest of my family were gathered together, looking very sad and lost. I knew they were grieving over my departure. I could feel their hearts and feel their grief and pain. Once again Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and another image appeared to my left. Jesus told me, "This is the future life of your family." I saw my mother, who looked much older. Her thin body kept trembling, and her face wore sadness and frustration. She seemed to have lost hope in life. She stayed at home alone, no longer in contact with the outside world. My heart became heavy and I realized how hard my leaving had hit her. Then, I saw the scene of my daughter's wedding. My daughter was wearing a beautiful wedding dress and was elegantly preparing to walk into the wedding. She looked so beautiful and I was so proud of her. But I noticed that she had no family around her, and it made my heart ache as she walked down the aisle alone. My daughter has found a responsible man as her partner. I could also feel her love and trust in him. Then, I heard the prayers of my family. It was as if they were right there with me. They wanted me to come back to them. Their thoughts touched my heart deeply. I felt their love. The choice became easier and I walked up the steps. I told Jesus that I wanted to go back. He smiled at me and nodded. As I prepared to leave this beautiful place, I felt very mixed emotions. Jesus stood beside me and he let me know that I had made the right decision. I finally asked Jesus, "If I go back, then will I still experience the pain from the car accident?" Jesus patted me on the shoulder and said comfortingly, "You don't have to worry, I will give you a healthy body, but it will take some time." Hearing this, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude in my heart. Before I left, he said something encouraging, "You will face many difficulties and challenges on earth, but you will not be alone. I will always be by your side." Before I left, I also hugged my father goodbye. He reassured me, "Don't worry. We will be reunited here again." As I stood on the steps, they began to descend automatically, as smoothly as if I were riding an escalator. We crossed the roof and entered an operating room. I could see the doctors were operating on me. They wore masks and gloves and carefully operated the instruments and equipment. I felt a warm energy coming from behind me. I knew that Jesus was with me all the time. As Jesus put my soul back into my body, I felt every cell in my body vibrate. This feeling was very special and overwhelmed me with excitement and surprise. As time went on, I gradually regained consciousness and began to feel the changes in my body. I felt every inch of my muscles re-energizing and every cell rejuvenating. A few days later, the doctors were amazed at my recovery. They had previously thought I would be paralyzed with little hope of a cure. But only I knew that with the help of Jesus, I had regained a healthy body. I still miss my father occasionally. I know that in the near future, we will be reunited again. I have more important things to do now. I want to take care of my mother and wife and spend as much time with them as possible. Make them feel happy and content. And of course my daughter, I want to be with her on the day she gets married. I want to give her more love and support in her life, so that her life will be full of happiness and beauty. This experience has been a profound one for me. It has made me appreciate life more and be more grateful for each day. I pay more attention to the needs and feelings of people around me. I also became more conscious of my health and lifestyle. I started to focus on diet and exercise to keep my body healthy. I became more active in pursuing my dreams and cherished every opportunity in my life. This experience was a revelation to me and made me more determined to walk my own path in life.